This is David Astle on ABC Radio.
Matt Stewart, he is a friend of the show, a regular here on evenings. He's also, too, one of the co-hosts of the great podcast series Do Go On, along with Dave and Jess. And it's actually had a little bit of an offshoot of that, all about the world of art. We'll get to that shortly, but now is the art of meeting Matt Stewart. G'day, Matt. Hello, Matt Stewart. Hello, Matt. Matt, he's probably screaming at me, and I'm saying hello to Matt. Here he is. I could hear a man breathing. G'day, Matt.
Hey, David. How's it going?
Good. Now, you've been past the giant stubby, the giant pink panther, the giant winch. Which was the biggest of them all? Which was the one that really impressed you?
I love the big miner in Cooper Pedy. Was a pretty good one. Maybe that's vanity because it did look quite a bit like me, but yeah, no, they're all great. The big winch, fantastic.
Oh,
who would have thought you'd have
big winch,
a landmark that's such a big winch.
I have to say that big miner in Cooper Pedy did have a striking resemblance. You don't have family in Cooper Pedy, or maybe sort of ancestral links back there, do you?
No, I didn't think so, but now I'm asking questions now. Sent a few emails back home to see. I
think you need to. I also know that you got out the golf clubs, which looked a little unwise given that there was not a blade of grass in Cooper Pedy. What was it like playing there on that all-dirt track?
It was, that was in William Creek, which had apparently a permanent population of 3 people, but enough to support a 9-hole golf course, even if it was 3 holes you had to play 3 times, but still, you'd pay it. And, yeah, it was dirt. But I hit it pretty well. Had a par on the first, and, yeah, felt pretty good about it. But, yeah, it was amazing. Like, I'd never played golf anywhere like that before. Red dirt, and, yeah, I'd say the green wasn't in the best of nick, but...
was it green at least? Did they paint the dirt green?
No, it was more brown, I'd say. But more of a brown than a green. But
for those who are trying to work out what you're on about, Beer Pioneer was the show that the first season was on Channel 31. That was pretty much knocking about in Victoria, was it not?
That's right, yeah. We finished in Hobart and went up to Sydney, but it was basically travelling around Port Phillip Bay, following in the footsteps of escaped convict William Buckley from the 1800s. He thought he was escaping from a settlement near Sorrento, and he was going to walk to China via Sydney, but he ended up sort of outside modern-day Geelong.
It sounds a bit like you. You had grand plans of going to Vegas on a beer trip, and you found yourself at the Big Winch in Cooper. Now, what's the plan of season 2 that you're currently embarking on?
Well, we're sort of vaguely following the path of another explorer from the 1800s, John McDougall Stewart, who was the first European to make it from Adelaide to Darwin and back again. Unlike Burke and Wills, he made it back. So yeah, sort of been following his path. I feel like we're doing it in a slightly more comfortable way, in a camper van. And if I could go back, I'd tell him that's probably the way to do it, rather than with the horses or however he went about it.
I don't think John McDougall Stewart would be having paddles of pale ale and Pilsner either. You've gone via breweries along the way, is that right, for your pains?
Yeah, which has been pretty nice. So the brewery's kind of thinned out in the middle a bit, but in Adelaide and the Clare Valley, even Cooper Pedy now has its own beer, Alice Springs. But yeah, there's been a few gaps in between. But now in Darwin, spent today at a brewery and then a gin distillery. So it's been a pretty fun time.
I guess you'd be grateful for those gaps in the map. It's a chance for you to dry out a little.
It would be if we weren't going to these. I've never been to one before, but these sort of they feel like iconic Australian bars. These sort of roadhouse, part service station, part hotel, part middle of nowhere pubs. And yeah, so they didn't have a lot of craft beer on tap, but we still made do.
Including the Barrow Creek Hotel. You've met royalty along the way. I know that you bumped into Ted Egan.
Yeah, we did.
Tell us a bit about Ted.
Well, he's a bit of an Aussie legend. I think he's released 30 odd albums, had a few hits. He's sort of probably his best known song is "The Drinkers of the Northern Territory," and there's a verse in that which is about the Barra Creek Hotel. I didn't fully follow what he was talking about. He was talking about some bullshit on the wall. Excuse my language.
Yeah.
But that's what he called it. And, yeah, it was literally like a cow pat that had been preserved somehow. And it's been sitting on the wall at that pub for 50 years. And
Petrified.
Petrified. I was. And so was it.
And at what point did you think it was a clever idea? It may have been after that paddle in Alice Springs that you thought, I know what, I'll go in the Red Dirt Poetry Festival International Haiku Death Match.
I can blame Shane, the producer, for putting me up for a few things that I probably wouldn't have put myself up for on a normal day. But, yeah, that was fun. The death match was pretty well attended there, and I made it into the second round. I think the judge was probably being a bit kind to me, and I got eliminated from there by a teenager. So,
yeah, you're a former winner of the Raw Comedy competition. You know your way around a stage. You're a great storyteller. What was the secret for the adolescent who burnt you? How is it that you've lost the death match?
I don't know. I guess they're better at telling a story efficiently than I am. I tend to blather on, so the 5, 7, 5 syllable format isn't probably ideal for me.
Can you remember the one that got you to the second round? Have you still got the haiku there in your pocket?
Oh, it's ringing through my head. I mean, I'd written because they said you might need half a dozen, so I had a few prepared. So I probably saved some of the better ones up my sleeve when I should have really just gone hard straight up. But I think the one that got me through was I love all liquids, rain in the sky, milk in cow, and the beer that's here. That's pretty
okay.
Does that make you think a bit, David, or feel anything?
Is that the one that got you through, or the one that got you knocked out?
Actually, I think you're right. That is actually the one that got me knocked out. Geez, you are good. You know your haikus. Yeah, that is the one that got me knocked out.
You know the difference between a haiku and a fairly low coup. That's Matt Stewart is my guest. He is he's one of the co-hosts of Do Go On. If you haven't caught up with that, it's a fantastic storytelling, trivia, diving podcast. It's been about the traps. It's actually had live podcasts. It's been over to overseas, Europe, London. It's a great podcast. And Artifacts. So the same trio, you, Dave, and Jess, have put together Artifacts as a offshoot to Do Go On. What's the what sorts of stories are you finding for Artifacts, Matt?
Well, so this was an idea of Dave's during one of the lockdowns. He's a bit of an art fan, potentially more than I am. I know what I like.
Yeah, that's important.
I like big paintings that are colourful.
Do you like dogs playing poker?
Oh, dogs playing poker, fantastic. Yeah, now we're talking art. But so Dave thought that he had this idea that we could go film the stories of these pieces of art, the history of it, in front of them, and then broadcast it so that people at home who can't get to the museums and whatnot would be able to see them. Which, as it turned out, it's coming out now that people are out and about again. But yeah, so we visited the NGV. There's an upcoming episode. I tell the story of Tom Roberts shearing the rams. We went to the Young and Jackson Hotel, and I told the story of Chloe, which is a pretty iconic painting there at the pub.
It is, for those who don't know. It's a nude brunette who's sort of looking over her shoulder, and really a central image of that hotel and an iconic one of Melbourne. So that was done by a French painter. Won multiple awards before it came over to Melbourne and caused a bit of controversy because it was depicting a nude woman. And, that really divided Melbourne in the 1800s, as it turned out, into the early 1900s. And, it's quite an interesting tale. But, it's sort of great. Based on an old French poem, that painting, which I didn't realise. I didn't know either. I'd have to watch. So it's something that you can watch. So Artifacts is a webisode series. Is that right, Matt?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's a 6-part series, so we're halfway through it now. So we went out to Heidi as well, one episode, another one at the main NGV building. And, this week's episode was out at the Collingwood Yard. I don't know if you know the...
Oh, yeah. Is it the Keith Haring? Is it the Keith Haring mural?
Keith Haring.
Ah, gotcha.
That's right.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so that episode came out this week. So they're all up on the Stupid Old Studios YouTube channel. They also are going up on C31 community TV on Sunday nights as well.
Okay, so Stupid Old Studios, they're the YouTube channel. You can see the web series of Arty Facts. That's Arty, A-R-T-Y, new word, facts. And also to C31, which is the Channel 31, where also to the Beer Pioneer, the first season of this same folly that Matt's embarking on as for the second season. Just to remind people, it is a 9:45 in Victoria, and it's 7:45 in Western Australia. And Matt, who's currently here in Darwin, just to confuse people, what time is it there?
It's 9:15 here.
Thanks very much. 9:15 in Darwin, if you happen to be listening. So are you going to be doing like John McDougall, Stewart, and turning around? Is that what you're planning to do? Are you going to drive back through, or how are you going to get home?
I'd be happy to do that, but no, we're flying. We'll be flying home this weekend. So yeah, you catch me right at the end of the trip. It was a 3 weeks long. I think it's going to be a 10-episode season. And, we'll squeeze in a bunch of stuff. Tomorrow, the final day is going to be pretty big. I'm feeding crocodiles and going up in a helicopter and a few other things, which should be fun.
It's great. I've been following, again, if you want to keep up with Matt, head for his Twitter because it's got some fantastic photos, including of him standing beside a life-size Pink Panther looking a bit underwhelmed. But the big winch is a real moment. And when he sees his grandfather in the shape of the Cooper Pedy giant miner, it is a sight to behold. It's great to have you join us, mate.
I've got to say, you read my body language very well. That Pink Panther photo, I was asleep in the van about 3 minutes before that. I got woken up just to get out for the photo.
I see you, Matt. I see you. I see you. It's good to have you on board tonight, Matt. Thanks for joining us. Congratulations on the second season of Beer Pioneer and also, too, of your second round exit at the Red Dirt Poetry Festival International Haiku Deathmatch. Great to have you.
Thanks so much,
Great to have you join us.
Cheers.
Artifacts, Beer Pioneer, Channel 31, and do go on the podcast. That's Matt Stewart, and he will be back here in the evening studio at some stage. But if you'd like to get up to know a bit more about Matt, he's at Stupid Old Studios, which is also to the host platform for Artifacts, the offshoot of Do Go On. 13 minutes before we've got news coming up. I think we've got time for a short song before we've got weather across all 4 states, or 3 states and 1 territory, if we are to be pedantic. Let's head for a tune, and the one that I've got lined up, something short, something sweet. It's Marlon Williams, and it's My Boy. Weather coming up shortly.